of Alex Preddy by federal agents. We'll discuss this and more of today's top headlines. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. We'll also talk with Dan Potter and Catherine Yang Bao from the Kinder Institute about a new study highlighting one of Houston's fastest growing and most diverse populations, Asian Americans.
Also, Zachary Keller, who's starring in the North American tour of the hit musical Water for Elephants, will be with us.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us, talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click that purple box.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A preliminary government assessment is out about the fatal shooting of Minneapolis protester Alex Preddy last weekend in Minneapolis. NPR's Jimena Bustillo reports it contradicts the Trump administration's initial narrative of the shooting.
The review describes how Alex Preddy resisted arrest before two officers shot him, but the review makes no mention of Alex Preddy attacking officers or threatening them with a weapon, as the administration first described the incident. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has come under intense bipartisan scrutiny for her initial characterization. She was quick to describe Preddy's actions as, quote, domestic terrorism, saying Preddy was attacking officers first and brandishing a weapon. The review does not mention an attack or that a weapon was brandished. Instead, it notes officers noticed a gun once there was already a struggle to arrest him. Jimena Bustillo, NPR News.
Some experts argue federal immigration agents deployed in large numbers in Minnesota's Twin Cities are unprepared for the resistance they're encountering. They say Customs and Border Protection officers are generally less experienced in urban policing and crowd control than other local law enforcement. The experts cite the isolation of border regions that can influence how CBP officers typically operate in terms of arrests without resistance and the frequency with which they may use lethal force. The Trump administration has quietly rewritten some rules for nuclear safety and security. NPR's Jeff Brumfield obtained a copy of the rules and reports. There are some substantial changes.
The changes apply to experimental reactors currently under construction at the Department of Energy. The department wants to get 3 or more of those reactors running by July 4th of this year. To help meet that deadline, officials rewrote internal rules for safety, security, and environmental management, then sent the rules to the companies building the reactors without making them public. Katharine Huff, who is a nuclear engineer at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, is critical of the decision.
In the best world, the public should expect as much openness from the government as is possible.
NPR's analysis found the new rules loosened groundwater restrictions, security requirements, and more. The Energy Department has said safety remains a top priority for the program. Jeff Brumfield, NPR News.
With Arctic air expected to maintain its grip over the eastern half of the United States through the weekend, the death toll from the recent storm continues to mount. Authorities say dozens of lives have been lost as a result of hypothermia, reported heart attacks, or accidents from the latest storm. One Texas community is mourning the deaths of 3 siblings who perished in an icy pond. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow was up 19 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. The crash of a business jet while taking off from Bangor International Airport has shaken the lives of Houston law firm Arnold and Itkin, Lakewood Church, and more. 3 of the victims, Tara Arnold, a lawyer and wife of founder Kurt Arnold, is one of the founders of the firm. The Houston Chronicle reports noted chef Nick Mastrascusa, a father of 3, and Shauna Collins, an event coordinator at Lakewood Church, were also all part of Beyond, a high-end travel group founded, I should say, by the Arnolds. The flight they were on left Houston for Bangor to refuel and then cross the Atlantic for Paris. Their Bombardier Challenger 600 crashed on takeoff from Bangor International Airport. The investigation into the tragedy is in its early stages. Texas will set to carry out its first execution of the year today relating to a Houston area case. Charles Victor Thompson is convicted of the 1998 double murder of his girlfriend and a man at her apartment in Houston. He gained national notoriety in 2005 when he escaped the Harris County Jail while awaiting a retrial. He was on the run for 4 days before eventually being apprehended in Shreveport, Louisiana. The execution is the first of 4 scheduled in Texas for this year. Taking a look at sports, the Rockets tip off at 8:30 in downtown tonight as they take on the San Antonio Spurs. Checking your weather, it's going to be sunny today with a high of 57 with light winds. Tonight, mostly clear with patchy frost, a low of 35. Right now, mostly clear, 49 degrees on the UH campus. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Good morning there. If you're just hearing 2 out of the 3 voices you're familiar with, Celeste will be joining us a little later in the show.
Yes.
So it's just you and I to begin it off today.
Just you and I.
Just you and I.
Just you and just I. Or would that be you and me?
Well, Just You and I was the theme to my prom. That was the song.
Was it really?
Yeah. Eddie, Money, and Crystal Gale may have done that duet. I'm sure folks online will correct me if I'm wrong, and I think I'm probably wrong. But
I loved Crystal Gale.
Oh, yeah, and that long hair.
Yes, that was her go-to, right?
You know, the scary thing is people are listening to us and like, oh, who's Crystal Gale? So,
did I ever tell you my mom grew up with Conway Twitty?
No.
Yeah, he's from Helena, Arkansas. His real name is Harold Jenkins, and when he started to get big, his agent said, okay, Conway, Arkansas, and Twitty, Texas, your new name is Conway Twitty. And that's sure enough.
That is funny.
I mean, they were the same class in high school. She would go to his little concerts at the high school. And when he would be at the state fair or whatnot, we would see him. He had a brother that looked just like him, and he recognized my mom and take us backstage to see Conway. And
that's funny.
It was a big deal.
My dad was a country music promoter in one of his many careers that he had as I was growing up, and he was a voter in the American Country Music Awards or one of those. And they had a big party at Conway Twitty's home, which was called Twitty City
in Nashville.
Yeah. So anyway, well, I learned something new about you every day. You're like an onion. Every day we peel back the layers and learn more about.
You never
Frank.
know who we know. It's all 6 degrees of somebody, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's the funny thing. Whenever you play 6 degrees of separation, you're in this business.
Yeah.
You always probably know somebody who knows everybody. And so that always makes it much easier for us to win that game.
Especially weathermen, it seems like.
Yeah.
Well, we've been around. If you've been around a long time, we've all crossed each other's paths in one way or another.
Speaking of being a weatherman.
Yeah, it's going to get cold again this weekend. So,
okay, I heard people saying, oh, yay, today. Tom told me earlier. Today he's all excited. He's going to go home and take all the wrappings off of his bushes and trees and everything. Your thoughts?
Well, you're going to need them again on Saturday and Sunday morning.
So leave them on?
Well, I mean, you want to take them off so they don't become a greenhouse because that can burn the plant. But I would keep them nearby because it looks like it's going to be clear and cold as we go. This front comes through Thursday night. Then the cold air seeps in on Friday so that by Saturday the high is 42 and the overnight low is 25.
But, okay, with just a couple of days, because I'm lazy, we've established that already. Can you just leave the coverings on through the weekend? Do you need to take them out? Will that greenhouse problem happen that fast?
I think the air is cool enough that I would leave them, especially if they're not in direct sunlight. Yeah. You know, like our old house, the north part of the house never really saw a lot of direct sun. So they're going to stay cool. So if they're not, especially if they're not in direct sunlight.
After this next little spell of cold.
Then what's going to happen?
What's going to happen, Frank?
Oh, wow. Well, it's going to be February.
Thanks for that in-depth reporting.
Yeah, Kevin's birthday's Monday, Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
Leave it to a weatherman to marry somebody who was born on Groundhog Day.
My dad, once again, his birthday was the day after Groundhog Day. And we always said my dad was a groundhog who came out too late. There you go. Anyway, all of that fascinating. So last night I was out for a bit because I went to the opening of Water for Elephants.
Oh, I hear it's terrific.
It is visually wonderful to see. I'm a big circus freak. I love circus-themed things. Yep. And so it was fun to be in that world. And the star of the show is going to be here with us. Zachary's going to be on the show today, and he'll be talking to us about not just doing the Broadway musical on tour, but also there's a lot of circus built into the show.
Well, and they're touring through August, from what I read. Is he going to be with them the whole time? I guess
probably, because it's the first national tour, and so he probably signed up for a year. They usually do a 1-year contract.
It closed in New York already.
Yes, it closed when I was there for your anniversary party.
Ah, yes.
It was closing
December.
that weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
anyway, so much to talk about, so much to do. And of course, we always invite you to be part of the conversation. Give us a call. Give us your opinions, thoughts on the stories we talk about, maybe even to talk to the guests we have. 713-440-8870. Keep that number handy. Call whenever you feel the urge. Okay.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
What?
British computer guy on YouTube.
What
a scarf, Ernie? Stylish for sure, but really necessary?
Okay. All right. I will address that. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you can watch us live on YouTube every single day, and we do have a committed group. Our HuTubers watch us. Yes, but the thing is, I'm not wearing a coat today. This was my entire coat, my scarf. But you're right. It is warm, and I am hot, and I'm going to take it off. All right. Now that we've straightened that difficult dilemma out, Frank, take me into the headlines.
All right. Well, the second deadly shooting of a U.S. citizen by federal immigration officers in Minneapolis is raising the prospect of a partial government shutdown at the end of the week. Senate Democrats say they will not vote to fund the Department of Homeland Security without new guardrails for immigration enforcement. But that opposition may also torpedo the larger $1.3 trillion spending package needed to keep large swaths of the federal government operational past Friday night. So it's sort of the baby in the bathwater here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The appalling murders, quote, the appalling murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy on the streets of Minneapolis must lead Republicans to join Democrats in overhauling ICE and CBP to protect the public. That's from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Quote, people should be safe from abuse by their own government. The DHS funding bill also includes funding for the Transportation Security Administration, the TSA, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, known as FEMA. So what are your thoughts? Should the government be partially shut down to help refocus ICE? So they want to do something about ICE. They don't want to fund it with what's been happening in Minneapolis.
Right.
I don't blame them. I don't want them to. But by not allowing that funding to go through, you screw everybody else. So that's the problem.
But the problem, and we have watched this happen in the last government shutdown, there are issues that we stand on, even in the state. Remember when we were doing it with the redistricting, the new map?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to, there is moments of difficulty to get to better moments of existence. How's that for sounding profound?
No, I mean, you pick the hill to die on, right?
Yeah, and I think in this case, as difficult as a shutdown, the Democrats at our federal level have very limited power because of the numbers right now.
Sure.
And so you have to find the tools that you have at your disposal to be able to make impact. And for people who feel like, well, they shouldn't do that, my argument is this is why it was structured this way, why you need this many votes on something, why it's not always just a simple majority, why you have the filibuster, why these things exist so that one side can't hold all the power, that there is still some balance back and forth, some negotiation has to happen. We're watching a point where, if you go by the polls, national polls, and especially polls in Minnesota, this is very unpopular, what's happening in the country right now.
It seems like you could not pass the bill, but then do some emergency funding for other agencies that absolutely have to have it.
Right.
So that you can get your cake and eat it too.
With healthcare, what was going on with the healthcare premiums and such.
Yeah, then they came back and funded it through 2027.
Right. So it did give some relief there. So there was pain in the moment, the growing pains of it all. Now, it's easy for me to say I'm not one of the folks that's going to lose their livelihood and their job or their salary during it. I don't think.
Right.
But I understand that there is pain out there too, and those folks probably don't agree with it. But we've got to find some answers to the problems we're having right now.
If you have the answer or just want to comment, give us a call, 713-440-8870. James is on the line from the Woodlands. Hello, James. Welcome to Hello, Houston.
Welcome, sir. Thank you. I'm for shutting the government down. All we need to do is have people on both sides come to an agreement and move forward. Because at this juncture, after the execution-style killing of that VA nurse, the only way that I can describe it is state-sponsored terrorism. When we started to go into this ICE situation, they were going to go after criminals. But now I see young adolescents pulled out of cars, car windows shattered, people pulled out of cars. There's already been 3 people killed by ICE, and this was never the intention. And this is serious enough to where we have to do something. And this is the only tool we have right now for people to get a hold of this situation.
I agree with you, James. And somebody is leading that charge, because these young men have been told in some kind of a meeting, do whatever you have to do. You got to shoot somebody in the way. You got to pull somebody out of a car. You got to grab a 5-year-old. You do whatever you want or need, you feel you need to do. Just do it, and we'll be behind you. So you could do without impunity. You can just absolutely no punishment for what you want to do out there. Somebody's told them this. You don't just get into this ICE group with your gun and your mask and decide for yourself it's okay to shoot people. Somebody's told them it's okay.
First, I just want to jump in and say, James, thank you for your call. To respond to that, maybe, but there's also the idea that it builds. You're out
Like a
there on
group
the
thing?
street, and the tension builds, and your pushback gets larger and larger, and there's no guardrails put on it. And so then you feel emboldened to take the next step. And so as each builds, even without I guess as opposed to a document saying you can do this, it's the idea that you're not being told you can't. And
Maybe.
so like water in a container will spread as far as it can before it's restrained.
At some point, we'll get the interview, the national interview with the ICE agent that breaks away. It says, this is what we were told. This is how we were trained. This is why we did what we did. No one's broken ranks with them yet. Someone will.
Yeah.
Someone has got to be sitting there on their conscience saying, what we're a part of is not what I signed up for.
On a total side note, but we're talking about shutting down the government and doing it with purse strings. What I find very fascinating is first year in office, the Trump administration was doge and cutting spending and pulling back money and all of that. Federal spending increased by approximately 4% in 2025. So all of this about cutting costs and pulling back and shrinking government, it actually expanded.
Good
Just
point.
thought that was an interesting point to throw in there.
It is an interesting point. Hi, Richard. Richard from the Galleria. Welcome to Hello, Houston. What are your thoughts?
Hey, thank you. A couple of things. One, I absolutely agree that the Democrats should use whatever tools they have to make some changes. And if shutting down the government is what it's going to take, then so be it. But the other thing I think they also need to fight for is make sure that the immigrants that they're picking up have due process. They're dragging people off the street and they're just shipping them off and not giving them any due process. And, regardless of whether they're legal or not, they still have rights under the law.
And how would you propose they do that, Richard? I'm confused myself about how these groups of ICE agents grab somebody like that. Where do they take them? To an ICE an ICE facility? So,
to my knowledge, they've been taking them to detention centers.
And so, is there a judge there that can give them due process, or is that just a detention center and then they're moved somewhere? It's sort of a mystery. None of this is very clear.
Yeah. Richard, thank you for your call. What I want to add to that is that we have been looking into this story. We had someone on the show, but we're looking for another guest to really talk about what are your rights in those situations. Do you have to show papers? Do you have to allow them into your house? Do you have to, if they say get out of your car, can they open the door to your car? Where are the lines drawn? But the other side of it is what is legal and what is happening in practice don't often seem to merge these days. And so we're going to do a segment, we're working to pull one together where we can actually give you some concrete information to understand those moments.
Because if a police officer has a warrant, then you may have to let them into your home, right?
That's a police officer.
I know. Do any of these people, these ICE people, have any kind of warrants other than they just?
And there are two different kinds of warrants that are out there, and only one, I believe, allows access. Another is an informational warrant that says they are allowed to.
Right.
Look
That's
for
why I'm confused as to where they're getting their power. Someone's telling them, do whatever you want to do. We'll back you up.
Yeah. But regardless of the power, it's the aggression we're seeing that I think is disturbing.
Sure.
If we look at the Alex Preddy tape, you see them, a woman is across the street filming them. Now, we have seen now a few more minutes previous to the incident happening, but you don't have still the full picture of what was happening there. But from what you see in the now extended version, is she standing on the curb filming. The ICE agent comes across the street to her, not ICE agent, I should correct that, the federal agent that came over, pushed her, and that started the problems. Did she antagonize them before? Is name calling worthy of getting pushed? Is not moving when somebody tells you to move your car justifiable by the death penalty?
But she has every right to
be filming.
Right. With her cell phone. I guess that's what we call it. Yeah. Filming. Taking video.
Capturing the images.
She has every right to do that.
Yeah. 713-440-8870. Jude from Friendswood. Jude, what's on your mind?
Hi. So going to the topic of the possible government shutdown over ICE, I feel like it will end up actually hurting the Democrats in the long term because essentially they're going to want to work across the aisle and find a middle ground with the Republicans who wish to fund ICE. But in this scenario, I feel that funding ICE at all in order to perpetuate these raids is just a problem in of itself. And so they're going to go into this shutdown. People are going to get hurt. And then the Republicans are going to spin it and say it was all the Democrats' fault and that nothing was gained from it. And so I really think that it's going to be up to the local communities to protect themselves from these thuggish ICE agents.
But Jude, how would you, I'm going to think that you are the intelligent one who's going to give us the solution here. How would you get a handle on it? Communities pushing back while a federal agency continues to fund something seems like the two would not come to a resolution anytime quickly either. What do you think could help bring us to a solution here?
To be completely honest, I'm not fully educated on figuring out these solutions, but as a local person, I believe that I can see a problem arising whenever it's coming up. And so I feel that's what's going to happen. And while I don't fully have a solution, I do think that while the steps are nice, I just don't think it's going to finish out what is happening.
Jude, thank you for sharing with us and for calling in. It kind of reminds me like your car is driving and you see that if you go this way, you can go over a bridge. You may not know where you should go, but you know maybe where you feel things would go wrong. And I kind of feel that's how Jude is seeing this.
Well, we just keep seeing the end product of what ICE is doing.
Yeah.
We see the bad stuff that they're doing. I haven't seen any good stuff. I mean, they say they've done good stuff. They've gotten rid of some bad people. There have been a lot of deportations of bad people. They just kind of tell you that as fact. But the video captures these murders.
Yeah.
And these grabbing kids. That's they need a real PR turnaround, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and it's not to in any way justify what I'm about to say, but to keep in mind, we see such a small piece of what's happening.
Yeah, that's
if you
my
hear
point.
the sheer number of people that are being removed, and we see a limited number of videos, but the videos we're seeing constantly show aggression, lack of interaction, and trust me, I would not want to be in the situation of either side of these.
I wonder why they just don't ignore it. Just do your job and ignore it. The people that are.
I think the problem is, what is their job? How are these people? And I think that if there was more transparency in the situation, that this person was being pursued because they had broken this and this and this law.
We have Mark on the line. He's from Southwest Houston. Welcome to Hello Houston, Mark. What's up?
Good morning, and thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to make a statement. I think it was Ernie that just suggested that you guys have someone on the show that could field questions about like what someone's rights are, what they can do in a situation when they're being asked to produce papers and things like that. And I just wanted to say, just out of sensitivity for the people who are being pulled over and asked to produce papers in situations like that, as another person of color, it's one thing to say what someone can do, what their rights are, but just thinking about for that person's safety, there's a big difference between what they may be legally able to do and, expediently what they should do for their own safety in a situation like that.
That's a very good point.
And I mentioned that what we're seeing is that just because it's legal or illegal does not mean that it is being abided by, and that we need to know what are we supposed to do in these situations as opposed to simply the legal fact of it. Because as you said, you could be following the law to a T and still find yourself in a very dangerous situation.
We got one more call here from James.
Mark, thank you, though.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mark. James from Humble. What are your thoughts, James? Welcome to Hello Houston.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate the conversation. I think it's awful when anyone loses their life in these situations. That said, there does seem to be a lot of media focus on the, all the negative. You said yourself a minute ago, we see all the bad, we don't see any of the good. Who's looking for the good is the question. The other piece that I would say is, Texas actually has a lot more arrests happening than Minnesota. We're not seeing the same behaviors. So, part of that has to do with the level of cooperation that the federal agencies are getting from the state agencies. And, if you back it up and say, what's the root cause? Well, if you have people in the street impeding arrests, bad things could happen with a bunch of armed officers. That's not saying it's right. I'm not defending it. But there's a big difference between protesting peacefully on a sidewalk and blocking police officer traffic. I'm not a Trump voter, by the way. I'm an independent. I've never voted for Trump, but it seems like a very one-sided conversation on this show.
James, by having calls like yours in there, we're hoping to make sure that we show different aspects of the conversation. I think we're trying to balance it out and talk about it. And so I appreciate your joining in the conversation and giving us that perspective.
Well, and, I've said the other day, who goes to a peaceful protest with a gun? I mean, it certainly doesn't justify what they did to Mr. Preddy, but I would never go to a protest carrying a loaded gun.
I think I would push back a little bit and say, because we've seen so much violence happening at these protests.
Just don't go.
It's your right. It's your freedom.
Well,
to
look
be
what
able
happened.
To protest. I know. Don't victim blame.
I know, but James, I see his point. I mean, you're sort of heading into a bee's nest.
Absolutely.
And you know that. Renee Good probably didn't realize that, but Adam Preddy knew what he was getting himself into. And I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying, if he had a gun, he was prepared for something.
Or he has the right to carry the gun. He has legally licensed for it, and he carried it all the time. It was just natural for him.
Like we were just saying, you may have the right to do this or the right to do that, but the way it turns out may be very different than what you expected.
Let's quickly grab Adrian from Sugar Land. It's 713-440-887. Adrian, what's on your mind?
Yes, my name is Adrian Davison. Well, as an immigrant myself who came from Nigeria, I feel if I am stopped by an ICE agent, I will dutifully, of course, obey. I remember long ago when I first came here in '88, and 4 or 5 different police officers followed me to my house, and I didn't even know I was being followed. I was asked to come out. I came out and they searched my car. I didn't know what they were looking for. I obeyed, and they couldn't find anything. They thought maybe I asked them why. They said, well, we're looking for someone. You look like someone that we're looking for, but you are not. And they left me alone, and I went about my business. And I believe if we obey them, obey law officers, law enforcement agents, and do what we are asked to do, things would just go normally, and there wouldn't be any problem. Carrying a gun to a place where there is mass protesting, especially at a time of mass shootings, is a major concern. So I empathize with the families of the deceased, but it is an overkill to take a gun to a place where mass protest is taking place. I feel for the deceased, but hey, we got to follow the law. We got to abide by the law. It is what makes this country a great country.
Adrian, thank you very much for that comment.
Got to go along to get along.
Yeah. We're always interested in what you think, whether you agree with Frank or I or even Celeste. Give us a call when you have a thought and a feeling. 713-440-8870.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll speak with Dan Potter and Katharine Yang Bao from the Kinder Institute about a new study highlighting one of the Houston region's fastest growing and most diverse populations, Asian Americans. This is News 88.7.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media Newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Hour brings you film.
The themes in it are so far ahead of their time.
Books.
The detail is amazing.
Art.
There's all the personal stuff.
Theatre.
Lots of singing and dancing and colours.
Music.
The dance floor is made for dancing.
And everything in between.
I want it to be exciting.
That's the Arts Hour with me, Nikki Beatty.
I really identified with it.
From the BBC.
The Arts Hour, Friday nights at 9 on News 88.7. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from DeCamera, presenting Brooklyn Rider, Frida's Dreams, with the premiere of a string quartet by Gabriela Lena Frank, inspired by Frida Kahlo, February 20th at Hobby Center. Tickets at DeCamera.com.
Support comes from Theater Under the Stars and the Broadway musical $1 Million Quartet, featuring the music of Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins, February 17th through March 1st at the Hobby Center. Tickets at tuts.org.
Support comes from Asia Society Texas, presenting the Bank of America Women's Leadership Series, Women Powering Energy, featuring women executives from ExxonMobil, Phillips 66, and Archaea Energy, January 28th. More at asiasociety.org/Texas.
And now back to Hello Houston. To share your thoughts on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
A new study from Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research is taking a deeper look at one of Houston's region's most fast-growing and most diverse populations, Asian Americans. Drawing on surveys, census data, decades of research, the study explores demographics, education, political views, identity, and experiences with discrimination among Asian residents across the greater Houston area. So joining us now to discuss what the research found and why it matters are Dan Potter and Katharine Yang Bao from the Kinder Institute. Dan, Katharine, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you so much for having us.
So I feel like this is a lot on one plate. I just put 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. There's so much here. First of all, roughly, how did you come to collect this data? What was the impetus behind it? And then we'll get into what it showed you.
Yeah, so when you think about Houston, we are one of the fastest growing metro areas in the entire nation.
Yep.
And then when you look within Houston to know what are the fastest growing groups, it is our Asian communities. They are by far one of our fastest growing race and ethnic groups here in the area.
Are they coming from other cities or other countries?
It's a both.
Both.
It's a both thing. And so building on 30 years of research that the Kinder Institute's been up to, looking at Asian communities, recognizing the importance this community has played and is only going to continue to grow in its importance over the years to come, we wanted to build on that prior work, elevate this as a group, and really importantly, not just talk about Asians, but begin that disaggregation piece, recognizing that when you say Asian, for all intents and purposes, you're using a census label that carries no real meaning. And so you got to dive beyond that. And so we're looking at 7 ethnicities behind it.
Okay, and I'm going to do exactly what you said not to do. But just to
go
put
for
it in perspective, what percentage of our population are Asian or Asian American?
We're looking at about 10% right now. Wow. And just to put that in perspective, it was less than 2% back in 1980.
Yeah, wow. It is amazing. And it seems to be Sugar Land up to the west side of Houston as far as where we're finding the concentration. And what is your role in this, Katharine?
I'm a research lead on the research. As you can see, I'm an Asian woman. That makes me accessible to the community because it's not just about reporting numbers. We want to be able to dive into the lived experience of people. We want to walk into the community. We want to be able to have conversation with the people. So, yeah, I'm honored to be part of the study to unravel the Asian story, the Asian community. I think it's becoming a more and more important part of our Houston metro area. And I'm hoping that everyone's voice can be heard, everyone can be supported, and their contributions can be seen.
And is the reality there that you said 7 different ethnicities? Mm-hmm. Do they all get along? Do you have an Asian community that welcomes all people that identify that way?
So one of the things that we found that was really interesting about the study was we asked folks about, do you think of yourself as Asian, or do you think of yourself as Chinese, Korean, Indian, Vietnamese, right? Some of our, again, that ethnicity, nationality piece. Over and over and over again, people put forward that they would typically think of themselves as Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, Korean, and that Asian label, while it wasn't offensive, we weren't hearing that sort of oh my gosh, we reject that label, it wasn't something they necessarily embraced either as part of their identity. And so it's not to suggest conflict within that Asian label, but just to acknowledge that there are multiple identities that are existing within that space.
An odd question, I'm just curious, in behavioral patterns, do these folks in the study tend to interact more within other groups within the Asian community, or do they tend to interact more with folks outside of it? So if you're viewing yourself as Korean, are you more likely to venture out into the rest of the community, or are you more likely to head toward Japanese or Chinese people?
Yeah, so I think Katharine and I have talked about that's the beauty of Houston. We live in one of the most diverse areas in the entire country. You can find your people here, and then you also have access to every other people here. And so the answer really to that question is both, is that there are those opportunities to exist within ethnic enclaves, to exist within, we've got the Asiatown area over in Bel Air. What are the other spaces we've got?
We have Asiatown also in Katy, and another one coming up in Pearland. If you walk on Bel Air, you will find restaurants from different ethnicities. So you have Korean restaurants in the middle of Little Saigon. You also have Japanese restaurants in the middle of Chinatown, and a lot of Cambodian, Laotian, and the Burmese shops in the back of the Chinatown. So that's just amazing.
And is there any kind of public marketing, PR push to invite people to Houston that are Asian American, and to say, hey, if you're looking for a place to live and thrive, Houston, Texas is a place to come?
We are a big destination location for sure. And I am not aware of any active campaign, but I would suggest that there are definitely networks that are out there. And part of it is it's a snowball effect, right?
Sort of word of mouth.
Word of mouth. You see businesses and opportunities and people succeeding, and that draws other folks in almost just through hey, I know someone that went to this area and were successful. So nothing comes to mind to me, Katharine. Are you aware of any active campaigns?
Not campaign in particular, but this informal network, chain migration, as you were saying, where are they coming from? Well, we have immigrants who arrive here directly from abroad, but we also have immigrants coming over from other parts of the country. and migrants.
I was going to ask, what surprised you most about this study?
To me, I think some of the political
That's where I was
evidence that we saw was a little bit on the surprising thing. And then there's sort of a complex narrative that emerged of when you look at identities, that sort of like the multidimensionality of people's identities, there were a lot of times where you might look at what people were telling us and saying, oh, my family's important to me. My ethnicity is important to me. Some folks, my religion is important to me. And it was sort of this like, oh, I guess we all think the same things are important. But what was really cool was when you jump down a layer, what made up my family, my gender, my politics, my religion differed. And so it was this beautiful moment of we share similar dimensions, but those dimensions are composed of different features.
Let me go into the politics a little
please.
bit. And oftentimes we look at different ethnic groups as monoliths. These folks vote that way. These folks vote that way. What your study showed, if I'm getting it correct, is that pretty much the Asian Americans in our area are a moderate vote. They don't really particularly favor one side or the other.
Well, it's kind of a bell curve. From what I saw, from conservative to moderate to liberal.
Right. But did you find within the subgroups there were political affiliations?
Yeah. So again, let's start overall and then we can jump down into some of them. So with political ideology, exactly, it's the bell curve you're talking about. Some folks at the more conservative end, some folks at the more liberal end, most folks there towards the middle. What was fascinating was when you then shifted gears to say, well, what political party did you affiliate with? Most of Houston follows that same distribution as well, I should add, right? But when you ask just general Houstonians where their political party identity lies, the plurality of us are in the independent boot, right? Like boot camp there. Within the Asian community, it's a third, a third, a third. A third identified as Republican, a third identified as Democrat, a third identified as independent. And a big reason for that, from what we can tell, is that, politics and political identity is often this like transferred from family, friends, history, right? Mm-hmm. And when you have, as Katharine was mentioning earlier, that sort of movement of immigrants and first generation and even like second generation folks in here, they themselves or their parents are not bringing that history of politics within the U.S. context into this position. And so there's a lot of that, like, new independent identity development going on. But to this point about like, let's move off that top level down, we did see differences, Katharine.
So Katharine, from what you see in this study, where would you say it's going? What kind of growth potential do you see for the Asian American population in the Houston region?
Well, we already know that the Asian American community is the fastest growing by far, not one of, but the fastest. So where this is going is that we are hoping that our study can help, on average, the Asian minority myth, the model minority myth or stereotype. We want to look into different communities. We want to look into different ethnicities. We want to be able to tell their story, their lived experience from so many aspects. It's not just a one story. Okay, Asian. No. We have more than 24 of ethnic backgrounds Asian here.
Mm-hmm. And when we,
Go ahead.
And when we think about that ability to lift forward voice and to understand community need, a big reason behind that is if we create communities where all residents are able to thrive, it continues to be an attractive place to live. And so there is nothing that we are currently seeing within the data to suggest that there's a cap on the type of growth that we can see. I mean, we're going through a moment right here, but like there's still these projections that are putting us, crossing over that 8 million, 9 million, mm-hmm. getting to that 10 million mark here in the decades to come. That is decades in the future, but again, there's growth potential still.
What you're talking about triggers for me to wonder, triggers the wrong word, it indicates to me to ask, and I hate to, after we've already established that the Asian American community is not a monolith, but is there a sense of feeling welcomed as this is a place for them? Or do they feel as a community that they need each other to support because they're not feeling accepted into the greater community?
So one of the
If you understand where I'm going with that.
I'm going to take a stab at it. If I'm not quite hitting it, let's try it again there. So one of the conversations that we've been having with various different members of the community has been around their identity and where they see need still within Houston. And here's where the political space has, just to circle us back to that conversation, has come up again and again in a particular political representation. That we know that there are definitely different folks that are making it into different levels, county judges, city council members, representatives there, but we also can appreciate that there's not quite that parity of representation with prevalence in the population. And so people beginning to think about that next step of how do we go from being just here to being integrated into how our communities are running, the power structure within those communities, and where we're going as a community moving forward.
Let me shift it a little to Katharine and then ask her it this way. So does the community, the Asian American community, feel accepted into the broader community, or do they feel the need to still remain their separateness to find support and understanding? If that makes sense. I taking it back to when COVID was going on, there seemed to have been this big rift and people felt very separate. And I'm wondering if in our region, if it feels like, no, because there's such a mix of people, we all feel as though this is our Houston.
I would say that as an Asian woman who has experienced firsthand the hospitality of Houston, I still remember that when I first moved here, I was welcomed by neighbors with a full Texas barbecue. That was my first time having brisket.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. It took 12 hours.
And you couldn't leave, could you?
Yeah, so I think people feel the hospitality, the welcoming of the city. And yes, they do still feel the need that they should support each other. They should make their communities bigger and stronger. But that doesn't exclude them from having interactions with communities outside the Asian enclave. And now we can see Asian population popping up everywhere. It's not just in those old enclaves anymore. Go to Pearland, go to Woodlands, or even Galveston. You see Asian population thriving. And you probably see Asian restaurants everywhere at every single corner in the city as well.
And I love them, every one of them. We got to leave it there. Where can we find your research online?
kinder.rice.edu/research.
Okay. Thank you, Dan Potter and Katharine Yang-Bao, for joining us today on Hello Houston. We appreciate the insight for sure. Coming up, a preview of Water for Elephants. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
With entertaining people like Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson.
I gave him one take, one sound, one voice, and that was it. Blah, 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 blah. And Matt, his eyebrows went up, his tongue came out of his mouth. He's like, oh my God, that's him, that's Bart, that's him. You got the part.
The most interesting people in show business tell their stories on Fresh Air.
Fresh Air, weekdays at 8 p.m. on News 88.7.
I'm Jesse Thorne. You want some real, insightful conversations about where art comes from? Well, Bullseye has you covered, as long as you don't mind a little bit of ridiculousness.
Y'all was like really judging me though.
They sniffed it out. They sniffed out that I was weird.
I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna sit, just like in the movies.
Listen, learn, laugh. Bullseye from Maximum Fun and NPR.
Bullseye, Thursdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera presenting Silent Night, a Pulitzer Prize-winning opera by composer Kevin Putz, sung in English, French, and German, inspired by the Christmas truce of 1914. Now through February 8th at the Wortham, tickets at hgo.org.
Support comes from Belmont Village Senior Living, committed to enriching the lives of seniors through daily programs, custom care, and hospitality in assisted living and memory care. 2 Houston area locations. More at belmontvillage.com/Houston.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Water for Elephants is the Tony-nominated musical based on the acclaimed 2006 novel of the same name, known for its remarkable production values and stunning visual spectacle when they put it on the stage. And like the novel and the film, it also tells the story of a young man who ends up finding a new home with a crew of a traveling circus, in addition to discovering more about life and love. The musical is currently running at the Hobby Center through Sunday, February 1st. And to tell us more about Water for Elephants, please welcome Zachary Keller, who plays the lead character of Jacob in the North American tour. Zachary, welcome to the program.
Hi, Zachary.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
I was thrilled. I got the chance to see the show last night, and it is really amazing. I said in the open of our show today, I have a thing for circuses. I love circuses. I love that whole culture. One of the first shows I saw on Broadway was Barnum, and in a lot of ways, there's similarities to this by having circus performed within telling the story. I'm curious for you as an actor, does that make doing the musical more complicated, or does it give you more fresh layers to play with because you're not just telling the story, there are circus acts going on around you the whole time?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's kind of both, really. I think it's been a really cool thing to learn how to do new skills. At one point I'm hanging from a trapeze while singing. And so, that would definitely make it a lot more complicated, and I had to learn how to do that. I worked with a vocal coach who called it Taylor Swifting it, where I basically had to run on the treadmill while singing the song so that I was able to have the endurance to do it. And then I would run off the treadmill and hang from a pull-up bar. So yeah, it definitely makes it, complicated, but it's been fun to learn new skills. And you have to be aware of what's going on around you. And every show is sort of different depending on, how the acrobats are feeling. If, certain tricks, we might have to adapt a little bit. So it's just, you have this extra layer of being aware of what's going on around you.
You could get some tips from Pink. She's amazing at being able to do that. So that's one of the challenges. You're on tour. You're all across the country. What other challenges are you facing with a show like this? It's basically like a circus going from town to town to town.
Yeah, I think there's, obviously the traveling aspect can be sort of challenging at points, just kind of adapting for that sort of thing. Making sure that you're getting enough water, making sure that you're getting the right nutrition can be sort of a difficult thing sometimes, because you're not going to the same, smoothie place that you always go to. You're not going to the same gym that you always go to. So, it's really, I think the challenging thing that I've found, because this is my first tour, is finding the things that give you comfort and finding the things that give you stability is a really challenging thing. But you actually learn how to lean on your fellow cast members and your fellow crew members. So you really find the community within that, rather than, going to the same church that you always go to or something like that really grounds you. You kind of have to find it elsewhere.
Did you just drop a heated rivalry nod when you said about the same smoothie shop every time?
Lord.
Hey, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. One thing that I found fascinating in the show, and I think it's probably a big challenge to the creatives behind the show, is the fact that thanks to Julie Taymor and Lion King or even Warhorse, we have an idea of what animals as puppets on stage are going to be like. You folks approached it in a very different way, which was in a lot of ways extremely surprising and stunning. The reveal of the elephant piece by piece, things like that. Your reaction to seeing it the first time, how they were going to do this, and then the reaction you see on the road when you bring these creatures to life.
Yeah, so I was actually fortunate enough to see the show when it was on Broadway, and I just remember being like absolutely stunned by the puppet work. What's really interesting is the fact that a lot of the puppets, they almost look almost incomplete. Like you're not getting the full horse, you're not getting the full tiger, you're getting just a piece of it. And in talking with the director, Jessica Stone, it's a memory play. So it's really about what my character Jacob remembers of these animals. So, at the beginning, he just remembers the elephant's eyes, and then he remembers the trunk. And so that's why you're first introduced to the trunk. And then eventually, you see the legs. And, as soon as they start to be able to communicate with this animal. And then, of course, there's the big reveal of the elephant itself. And so I think it's a fascinating concept and choice to have it that the puppets are actually, it's his recollection of it rather than it just being this full, complete thing.
Well, it's funny when you mentioned the horse. I'm thinking back to last night. And yes, I saw it was just what was there. In my mind, I remembered the full horse. And when you tell me it was just part of it, I'm like, oh, you're right. There wasn't ever the full horse on stage, but the memory of it, it's really kind of fascinating. You mentioned it being a memory play, and part of it is there is the old character of you and there is the you character of you. How much do you have to work with that actor so that the two of you are kind of in sync? Do you want to have similarities in behavior, or is it just the fluke of casting the similarities?
Yeah, I think it really works out. We're actually kind of like around the same height and everything too. But there was conversations surrounding like mirroring each other's behavior a little bit. And obviously he's playing the older version of me, so there's that plays into it as well. But we have to sort of be aware with our periphery during certain moments to make sure that we're lining up, that our hands are going in our pockets at the same time, that our arms are crossing at the same time, that we're sitting at the same time. So there are those moments, and we will talk about it too. We'll check back in and make sure that we're hitting those beats and that we're in sync like that.
But really, are you going to go bald by the time you get to his age? Because you got quite a head of hair up there, and he has no hair at all up there. Interesting choice there.
It's theater, Ernie. It's theater. Zachary, one of our YouTube viewers, is asking, what's the wildest, quote, circus moment that you've had in rehearsals so far that made you feel like you actually jumped on that train?
I think the biggest one for me personally, there's a couple that come to mind, but for me personally, I have a moment at the very top of the show when I'm first introduced where I pop out of a poster and then I run and literally jump onto this train. And in that moment, it took a lot of training because I have two of the circus performers, they're called basses or porters. They literally lift me up. And so it took a lot of work to figure out exactly where my feet need to be, exactly where my hand needs to be, how close I need to be to them. And they're lifting me up above their heads, which is just insane that we do that every night. And every time I go to run and do it, I'm like, are we going to make it? And is Jacob going to make the train? We'll see.
Timing is everything.
And then I jump onto a freestanding ladder, basically, where people are just holding it. So that's probably the craziest moment for me personally. Obviously, the trapeze moment's really, really cool. But I think the coolest thing to watch is there's a pole that goes up and someone's doing a flag on it as the pole is going up. And then they slide down it upside down. And the audience loves that part. And it's during such a amazing song. It's like a 10-minute number where we're setting up the circus. And so people really enjoy that moment.
Zachary, We're going to run out of time here. I just want to quickly mention that Thursday night after the show, I'm going to moderate the talk back with the cast and the audience. I hope you'll stick around and join us for that.
Yeah.
Well, I hear all good things about you, Zachary, so congratulations. Zachary Keller is an actor currently playing Jacob Jankowski in the North American tour of Water for Elephants. Thank you so much for being with us. Water for Elephants is running at the Hobby Center through Sunday, February 1. You can go to thehobbycenter.org for tickets. Coming up, we'll continue discussing the top headlines of the day. We're also going to learn about the Museum of Fine Art Houston's new Frida Kahlo exhibition. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to maternal fetal specialist Dr. Jerry Refuerzo, who helps keep moms and babies healthy and safe through high-risk pregnancies and births. More at uth.edu/manyfaces. Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Really nice day, lots of sun. We'll get up to about 56. Patchy fog tonight, a low near 38. It's 51, and this is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, dozens gathered at Houston City Hall yesterday with protesters calling for City Council to cease all cooperation with ICE. We'll discuss this and more in today's top headlines. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Ernie Manous. The Artemis II crew is now in quarantine in preparation for a possible February launch to the moon. We'll discuss with Houston Public Media reporter Michael Adkisson.
Plus, we'll also learn about the Museum of Fine Arts Houston's new Frida Kahlo exhibition, Frida, the Making of an Icon.
Also, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And remember, you can watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was the subject of an attack at a town hall last night. She was not harmed and continued the event. Threats against members of Congress have risen for the third year in a row. NPR's Barbara Sprunt reports U.S. Capitol Police attribute this in part to a false sense of anonymity online.
Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was rushed by a man at her town hall. He sprayed an unknown liquid from a syringe in her direction. Also this week, Florida Congressman Maxwell Frost of Florida said he was punched in the face at the Sundance Festival. The Capitol Police reports an uptick in 2025 of concerning statements, behaviors, and communications towards federal lawmakers, their families, and their staff. They investigated nearly 15,000 threats last year, up nearly 58% from 2024. Last year, there was an increase in security funding for members of Congress in response to growing concerns about political violence. Barbara Sprunt, NPR News, Washington.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is not ruling out new military action in Venezuela. He tells lawmakers that the South American country was a base of operation in this hemisphere for many of the U.S.'s competitors and enemies until ex-President Nicolás Maduro was seized weeks ago.
We are not postured to, nor do we intend or expect to have to take any military action in Venezuela at any time. The only military presence you'll see in Venezuela is our Marine Guards at an embassy. Okay, that is our goal, that is our expectation, and that is what everything that outlines towards. But that said, if an Iranian drone factory pops up and threatens our forces in the region, the president retains the option to eliminate that threat.
Rubio is appearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, a panel on which he was a senior member before he resigned from the Senate last January to assume his current role. The Federal Reserve is expected to hold its benchmark interest rate steady this afternoon when policymakers wrap up their latest meeting. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the central bank is facing pressure from the White House to cut rates more aggressively.
The Federal Reserve has lowered interest rates 3 times since September out of concern with a softening job market. Job growth has slowed sharply over the last year, and surveys show worries about job security are weighing on consumer confidence. But inflation is still higher than the Fed would like, so a majority of Fed policymakers are expected to vote to keep rates where they are for now. President Trump insists borrowing costs should be much lower, and he's been demanding the Fed do his bidding, even though the central bank is supposed to be insulated from political pressure. Trump is preparing to nominate a replacement for Jerome Powell, whose term as Fed chairman is set to expire later this spring. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow was down slightly at 48,997. The S&P and NASDAQ also down a fraction. You're listening to NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. We are now under a week away before Election Day, when the winner of the 18th congressional district race will finally be decided. Former Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee and former Houston City Council member Amanda Edwards are squaring off against each other. This is to replace former Houston Mayor turned Congressman Sylvester Turner's seat. Renee Cross is the Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston. She says early voting turnout has been low.
About 18,000 people out of 400,000 eligible voters. So that is terrifying. And I hope that Menefee and Edwards do everything in their power to turn voters out.
Election Day is this coming Saturday, not next Tuesday, when elections typically occur. 4 Aldine ISD middle school students are recovering today after getting sent to the hospital yesterday. They were on a school bus that was hit by the driver of a vehicle being chased by police on the East Tex Freeway near Homestead Road. In total, 28 people were on board at the time, including the driver. The students that were hospitalized had just minor injuries. A 17-year-old suspect is in custody. The vehicle involved in the chase had been reported stolen. That chase lasted about 5 minutes, according to Harris County sheriffs. A NASA research aircraft landed safely without its landing gear at Ellington Field yesterday after experiencing mechanical issues. The plane touched down on its belly. This caused plenty of sparks to rise in the air. All members of the crew are safe and healthy. The runway was briefly closed while the aircraft was cleared. In sports, the Rockets are at home tonight, taking on the San Antonio Spurs at 8:30. In weather, sunny today with a high of 57. Tonight, mostly clear with patchy frost early, a low of 35. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, a personalized program that bases rates on safe driving habits, at Progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We made a truth teller out of Jim this time because Celeste is back in.
Celeste is back in. Welcome.
I am back.
Welcome to Hello Houston, Celeste.
Yes, thank you. As so many parents know, sometimes when you're juggling multiple hats, you've got to focus on one.
I don't know how you do it.
I had to focus.
3 kids at home if you include Dan.
Dan would love that if you said that. It's a lot, but so many people do it, and I am fortunate. I am very fortunate to have support, and so. But yes, this morning at my son's school, it was snow day, and he said, "Mommy, you have to go. Mommies have to go," and I was like, "Gulp." Okay.
Okay, I'm going.
We're going to go there.
But you also talk about home care, and you have help at home. I have help at home. Two different ends of the spectrum we have them at. And you just forget how important sometimes it is to have these folks, and they are part of your family, and that we depend on them. And I think across the community, across this country, we are fortunate to have people who do that work and help us to be able to do what we do.
100%.
I have Kevin.
Yeah.
And you have Kevin.
He does it all.
Hi, Kevin.
Trust me.
Yes.
He does it all.
But it sounds like it was very interesting first hour on Hello Houston. Y'all covered a lot, and it seemed like our Houstonians are very interested in the topics.
Yeah. We took a poll in the first hour. How do you feel about people carrying guns at peaceful protests? The choices were: should be allowed, it's your right; should not be allowed, and not sure, no opinion. Well, we never have an audience who has no opinion. Our audience always has an opinion. We had 0% on that, but we had 80% that feel you should be allowed. It's your right.
I voted for that. I think you're stupid to do it, but you have a right.
Well, that's
I
the
would
thing.
never take I don't own a gun, to be honest, but if I did, I wouldn't take it to where there's a crowd.
Yeah.
And if that crowd is expected to be full of armed people,
Yeah.
I would just avoid the crowd altogether.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those situations where we have rights and there are things that are allowed to us to do, but the joy of that is that then gives you the choice whether or not you want to do it. And like you're saying, it's the Second Amendment. It fascinates me that the folks that are very pro fighting for concealed handgun licenses and all of that were the same ones who are saying in a lot of ways this, and I don't mean to stereotype a group of people, but are saying he shouldn't have had the gun there. That wasn't his right. Even the president. Well, he shouldn't have taken it there. Well, it's the law. It's allowed.
He was
especially given that we had Kyle Rittenhouse, a young teen take a open, very big gun, excuse my naivety when it comes to the type of rifle that he had.
An aggressive-looking weapon.
A very aggressive-looking weapon who did not have, I believe, a license to carry. He's a teenager. I mean, it was basically every reason that you would say don't do this. He did it, and now he has a podcast and, was given speaking engagements, and here we are today.
Yeah. On the other hand, from what we've seen of ICE, it seems like they're not very well marked. Does that make sense? Just a bunch of guys in masks with guns.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a police presence, we see the cars, the lights are going off. If the police are all there, the police are there.
Well, I'm also fascinated, and if one of our listeners can help shed some light on this, they often have things that say on them police, but I don't know if that's official police. Like it'll say police ICE.
Well, if it doesn't look like the Houston Police Department to me, then it's not the police. It could be anyone.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem is the identification. Then the masks that are on too, you don't know who's who. And you don't know if there's imitators out there that are just harassing people because there is no official. Yes, Celeste.
And just to clarify, it was an AR-15.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Well, anyway, that being said, you missed our weather forecast earlier. So Frank, for Celeste and those just joining us.
Yeah, it's nice. It's making its way into the 50s right now. And we have another nice day tomorrow. We have a front coming through Thursday night. There may be a coastal shower with it, but nothing big out of that front as far as precip. However, as I say, that cold air is like molasses just coming down the country. That gets here, especially Saturday, with a high of 42, low of 30, and then on Sunday morning, a low of 25, 26. So a cold weekend ahead, but we're not dealing with any ice or that whole shebang that we had last weekend.
And Celeste, I had to work this through with Frank earlier, so I'll give you the short.
Yes.
If you've already covered your plants, you're probably okay to leave them covered through the weekend.
Well, good thing I didn't cover any plants.
So no problem for you.
I just brought mine inside.
I think people are just over it. Yeah. They just have coveritis,
Well, I also think that after, 2021, and now we're seeing this yearly, we have kind of this winter storm come through. People are starting to buy more native plants, a little bit more robust, and just saying, okay, I'm going to foot the bill if they die.
When it comes to wrapping pipes, too, I'll give you this quick story, then we can move on. As we've established in the first hour, I'm lazy. I wrapped my pipes really well and then left that wrap on it for like 2.5 years. And then when they cut the wrap off, it had gotten moist because it was towels and it had ended up rusting pipes. So when this weather does pass, take the wrapping off your pipes.
Christmas lights are still up.
You know me. All right. That being said, Celeste, you're back, which means we can go into the headlines.
KPRC reports dozens of protesters gathered at Houston City Hall Tuesday, calling on the city council to end all cooperation with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, amid nationwide outrage over recent federal agent shootings. About 100 people filled the council chambers, shouting at council members and urging the city to cut ties with federal immigration enforcement. The demonstrations in Houston come amid nationwide outrage after ICE agents shot and killed 2 people in Minneapolis earlier this month, the same situation that we have been talking about. Activists say federal immigration operations have put communities at risk, prompting protests in multiple cities. The protest also followed rumors about ICE activity at city warming centers, which the mayor denied earlier this week. According to ICE Houston, the agency arrested more than 3,500 undocumented individuals during the federal government shutdown from October 1st to November 12th of last year. ICE says these arrests included people convicted of murder, child sexual abuse, and gang-related offenses. What are your thoughts on this protest? Are you with the protest, or do you support Houston ICE, or think this perhaps isn't the right way to go about it. Now is the time to join us, 713-440-8870.
I guess the first thing that stands out in this story for me, and it's a continuing problem I think we're having with it, which I think more, as we talked about in the first hour, transparency would help. When they say it included murderers, child sex abusers, and gang-related offenses, I would like to see the numbers. I would like to know.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The data stinks. You
Right.
can't say we had 3,500 arrests and it included some of these people without telling me how many it included.
Right. And I think we need to know that. And I think if we knew that, there's two schools
Well,
of
why
thought
don't
on
we
this.
know that?
Right. If we knew it, then we would be like, oh, we see what the work is being done. There were 3,500, 2,000 of them were murderers. Oh, that's a good thing. But if the numbers are coming out, one murderer, two abuse, well, then go after those people. Who are the rest of these? Yeah. That's the part I have trouble with. Because if 3,500 people in our area were murderer, child sex abusers, and gang-related offensive people, we're in a really difficult area. You know, the sheer numbers they're talking about that are coming out, how much violent crime is going on that we don't see.
And the other thing I think is and I want to take it just one step further in the reason it is so important when the Department of Homeland Security goes on record and says things is because we're looking at them to tell us the facts. Mm-hmm. And what's happening in Minneapolis is we have video of things. We have hard material, video, sound, and then they're telling us something different. So then we begin to ask ourselves, what is it that why are you not telling us essentially everything? We're simply asking for transparency. And these numbers, again, seem questionable.
Yeah. I believe in a democracy, you have to have trust in the people you've elected. And if you don't, then that starts to degrade your democracy and watch it crumble around you. Because if you can't believe the words they're telling you, what do you believe? And that's been a big problem with this whole situation. 713-440-8870. Jen from Clear Lake is on the line. Jen, what's on your mind today?
Well, it's like these are our rights, like whether it's carrying a gun, going to a protest, free speech. And it's the law that we have these rights. So law enforcement should be supporting us having these rights because they're there to enforce the law. They're not there to enforce some other weird thing. And Department of Homeland Security, that's ICE, we're the homeland they're supposed to be securing. They're supposed to be keeping us safe, not shooting us in the street.
Right. Jen, thank you for calling and sharing that. I think that is a concern we have. And to go back what we've been talking about, if there was more transparency and understanding, but you often wonder when there isn't, what is actually at play? Why do we not know these numbers? Why do we not understand what's actually happening? And if we have rights, why are these rights not being reaffirmed by our security agents? Shouldn't their job be to secure the rights we have? Shouldn't they be out there saying, you have the right to protest? That's what we're protecting. But that's not what we're seeing.
And again, 713-440-8870.
I know there's a very delicate line between protesting and interfering. And I think that the ICE agents are saying these protests is interference. And when you interfere, then you are obstruction. And if you're obstructing the justice that they're there to deliver, they feel like they have the right on their side.
I would guess, though, if you went to court and were being charged with being, what was the word you used? Offensive. What was it? Interacting, when you're interacting with them. You just said it. My mind goes blank.
Interfering?
Interfering, that the punishment is not the death penalty. That's where I'm having an issue here. Somebody interferes and it's causing a problem, arrest them. Okay, if that's what you want to do, and then try them for that. To be judge and jury in the street and shooting people does not seem as though that's the way it should be done.
Well, of course not. As I said yesterday, they have tasers. Use a taser on someone if you absolutely feel threatened. Long before you would just use not just one gun, but the Alex Preddy was shot at least 9, if not 10 times.
Yeah,
and that is just cold-blooded murder.
Yeah,
I mean, at some point you're not just getting the problem out of the way. After the first bullet, you're pretty much just shooting someone for the pure joy of it, as it's sick.
Well, I think we also have to not that we have to, but it's part of the discussion that people should at least spend some time thinking about, is how the tension builds in a tight group that's out there feeling opposed. And regardless of should they be feeling opposed, but you have these agents out on the street that feel like everyone is after them. And maybe in some ways that is the reality of it. People don't want them there, especially in Minneapolis. So they feel this. So the tension is building within this tight-knit group that is continuing to feed each other's beliefs and fears. And so when an incident happens, it's that spark that then the overreaction that happens. Yes, if they thought somebody had a gun and that person got shot, what led to the 9 more shots at the person? It's that building of tension that's happening where these people are not being managed in a way that allows for de-escalation.
Well, and you have the whole problem of who these people are. These agents that have their faces covered, so you can't do any kind of a check on them. I know that the Houston Police Department is very proud of their cadets. Once they go through training, they have a big graduation. The families are there. It's like a high school or college graduation. It's important. And you know who these people are that have chosen law enforcement. These, from what I understand, a lot of these people were on January 6th and were let out, and now they were Proud Boys, and have a very right-wing agenda. But we don't know. We don't know who they are, and they don't want us to know who they are. So that just leads to some kind of secret police that have guns and authority and the president behind them to do whatever they want. It scares the hell out of me.
But I think it's going to be very interesting as we look at this, especially given that we are a news outlet, in the fact that you're going to start seeing words more like rhetoric, propaganda. People are going to say, oh, this is just what we're saying right now is simply the left agenda. ICE is doing their job, and the media is winning at showing them being aggressive, but that there are equally people out there that are working for ICE that are doing good.
Well, the media didn't set up 2 murder scenes.
Yeah,
they didn't set that up.
We had a text that came in and said, regarding the shooting in Minneapolis, they keep talking about bringing guns to protests, but that was not a protest. Look at the footage leading up to the incident. It was just ICE harassing someone when he was passing by on his way to breakfast, legally carrying his firearm, same as every day. He just stepped in between ICE and another pedestrian to help her and try to de-escalate. Don't let the protest line distract from what's actually happening. I do want to once again clarify that the agent, if I understand correctly, was not an ICE agent, but it was an enforcement agent. But they weren't under the guidance of ICE, I don't believe.
We have some calls coming in. Carolyn from Missouri City. Carolyn, welcome to Hello Houston. What's your thought on this? Carolyn, are you there?
I'm here.
There you go.
They said to turn the radio off, so I wasn't sure what to do.
Well, thank you for doing that.
I'm okay. I am very concerned about the way ICE is behaving. But it's because the president has given the order. It's under him, and what they're doing is illegal. But he's over. He's not doing what is legal, and that's what's really disturbing about this. And when they pull in the Border Patrol into these areas as well, it's a whole different ballgame at the border than it is in the urban areas. And then they're overwhelmed. They're overwhelming the city because there's twice as many, probably 4 times as many officers as there are police officers in Minnesota. And so it's just the police can't do their jobs. When they're masked, when the ICE is masked, you don't know who they are, like you said. And it just produces fear and chaos, and it's not productive. And they're doing sweeps instead of getting a warrant and going to a particular house and arresting someone. When you stop someone because of what they look like or what they sound like or the music they're listening to, pull them over, and then demand that they open their window, and that if they don't, smash it in. It's just the way that they're doing it that people are so upset about.
Mm-hmm. Carolyn, thank you for your comments and your thoughts on that. I want to go back to something I was just talking about a moment ago in the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. It was not an ICE agent. Multiple reports and official summaries make it clear it was U.S. Border Patrol agents, part of Customs and Border Protection, CBP, not U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, were the ones who fired the shot that killed Petty. Just
But
so
that
clarify
goes,
that.
But that goes to the mere fact that we don't know who's who because
Right.
they're not.
But I just want to make sure we're not
in a
putting
uniform. Everybody's wearing a mask. Everybody's carrying a gun. They all look the same.
They're both parts of the Department of Homeland Security's immigration apparatus, but I just want to be clear on that.
But we separate sheriffs from constables, from police, from state troopers.
Yeah.
So you know who you are dealing with. And this ICE and CBP, all these guys, they all look the same.
Yep. 713-440-8870. Peggy from Spring. What's on your mind, Peggy?
Well, on a little bit of a lighter note, but to stress how this has all been so heavy on our minds, having kind of nightmares about it. I had a dream last night that Kristi Noem was after everybody that had ramen noodles in their house. And we were frantically notifying friends and family to gather up their ramen noodles and hide them because they might be coming for you.
And there goes A&M.
So I'm guessing you don't need a dream interpreter to help you figure out what was on your mind, huh?
Exactly. It just kind of drives home the point that what's happening, and it's seeping into our dreams and nightmares.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Peggy. Yeah, I think to Peggy's point, this is we are in times where we see everything. Information moves very quickly. Video is in the tip of our hands, and we see it. And I myself, the other day, over the weekend, just put my phone away, and I said, I can't handle this. I have to unplug. And that's a reminder, even everybody, regardless of how you feel about politics, now we are in a time where we have to take care of our mind.
We have that internal struggle, and I face it too. It's I want to stay informed, and I want to know everything as it's coming out and happening. And on the other side, it's like, I need a break from it. Yeah. But I feel like if you don't pay attention, then the other side is winning. They're able to change the narrative if you're not on top of every little nuance that comes out.
But I would like to understand what y'all think about this. Essentially, the Department of Homeland Security back in September posted, and you can go to dhs.gov in their news in September of 2025. They posted, DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, calls for media and far left to stop the demonization of President Trump, his supporters, and DH law enforcement. And then the release date, September 17th, 2025. This hateful rhetoric is contributing to political violence in our country and a more than 1,000% increase in assaults against our brave ICE law enforcement.
I agree with the sentiment, and I have trouble with the facts, which is the fact is if you're not doing the behavior that leads to this kind of reaction, you wouldn't be getting the coverage you're getting. And that's what I strongly believe. I think the vast majority of the media is out there doing a yeoman's job of covering the stories that are happening in front of them. And maybe they are not to the liking of an administration or a particular politician or a particular agency. Look at yourself and see why bad stories are coming out about you. Yes, there will always be the outliers that are going to be playing around with the facts and information, and we see that all too much today. But you
see, that's the thing, right, is bad stories. The way I see it as a journalist, it's not a bad story. It's the fact.
Yeah.
The fact is we saw what happened with our own eyes.
Right.
When you take out journalists who are there to hold anybody with a certain amount of power accountable, it makes, as a journalist, trust me, we're not getting paid that much. I can tell you about newsrooms across the nation are struggling when it comes to budget. People are reporting on what they see because that is their job.
Flip it back on Kristi Noem. Then report what is actually happening too. If you feel the media is not reporting, we feel you're not reporting it accurately. You said brandishing a gun. We have all seen the video. There was no gun being brandished.
And truly, who benefits if journalists and journalism and what we are reporting goes away?
Yeah.
The elected officials that essentially are saying this is propaganda. Because then very quickly all of a sudden there is no accountability.
Got a bunch of calls. Let's try and move through some of them. 713-440-8870. Allison from the Heights. Allison, what's on your mind?
Hi. The earlier caller spoke specifically about the number of officers in Minneapolis, and that's what I'd originally called for. Homeland Security went there with 3,000 officers, which is 5 times the number of police they have.
Yep.
And so all of that group coming in almost like an invading force, of course, is going to agitate the people who are there. But also I want to point out, and sort of to our session earlier where you talked about we should go along and do what the police are asking. Minneapolis is a blue city in a blue state. We may be a blue city in a red state. And so because we have Governor Abbott, we're basically protected from having those 3,000 officers come in. I wouldn't be surprised that we get unprotected at some point, since he also, targets Houston and Harris County. But they've been put in a very different situation than what we are. And a lot of the smaller towns in Houston are being, quote unquote, invaded by ICE. A lot more people are being picked up than in the urban core. So I think the illusion that somehow Minneapolis is doing something different or less law-abiding is an illusion.
Yeah. Allison, thank you for your comments. 713-440-8870. David from Clear Lake. David, what's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Great show as usual. And by and large, I think y'all are very balanced. But to piggyback on something that Allison was saying, so to speak, about an illusion, I think y'all really need to give numbers when we talk about the crime statistics. And I know it's always a little fuzzy. There's some debate here and there. But when y'all, for example, start talking about, well, they're getting this felon and this murder and this and that, it's really, really important to let the people know that there's just not that many like we think we are. There are. It's an illusion. It's just like mosquitoes and sharks. There are so many people afraid of sharks, but if you look at the numbers of how many people sharks kill every year, it's minimal compared to a mosquito, so to speak. My point is that numbers, the statistics, add context to really flesh out how this is a ruse for more underlying systemic issues as to, what's going on with the immigration issues.
David, thank you for that. And as we said, the numbers that we did give, that Celeste gave earlier, was from ICE Houston of 3,500. And our issue was that then they said these people included this grouping of folks without telling us the numbers of how many of each of them were arrested. So I guess we're right in the same camp with you, David. We would like more transparency in the numbers as well.
And I'd also like to know the numbers of, okay, you're telling us how many were arrested with some type of criminal activity connected. How many people are being detained right now that have zero criminal record?
We don't know. We don't know.
I do know people that are currently being detained that do not. I know one person specifically, I should say people, who is a young woman. She's a mom, no criminal record. She has worked in the United States. She pays her taxes. She was in the process of getting her visa in the midst of it. And she is sitting in a cell in Conroe at a detention center. And she has a 4-year-old son that she is not able to see. And it is extremely
You wouldn't
sad.
Categorize her as the worst of the worst, would you?
Absolutely not.
No, she's being punished for doing the right thing.
713-440-8870. Jim from West Houston. What's on your mind, Jim?
Yes, thanks for taking my call. I in a way, I really hate to bring it up because I would hope that we would be better than this. But this whole thing has come about because of Trump and his racism and his actually he hates blacks and browns, and he has a following that goes along with him. Even politicians like Abbott, he's the same way. They hate these people. Trump has invited people from Norway or the Scandinavian countries. Yeah, please come on to America. But he doesn't issue that same, invitation to African countries or to South American countries. It's obviously, we have a horrible problem. We have a president who's a racist, and we have senators who are racist. We have a governor of Texas that's obviously a racist. And that's the problem that we're having.
Jim, thank you for calling in and sharing. I guess we would all agree we can't really know what's in someone's mind or how they really feel about things. We can say that we have seen behaviors that would definitely point to favoritism towards certain groups. Whether or not that makes you racist against other groups, time will tell on that.
And I think it's very hard, right, when we use such a strong word, because we do know that more than 50% of Americans voted for President Trump. And when you look at that, you start saying those things, you have to ask yourself, well, if 50% of the country voted for Trump, more than 50, what does that say about the country? And you can't broad stroke that type situation.
Yep. 50% of those who voted. Unfortunately, still in this country, we have low voter turnout, and we need people to go out and vote. Remember, there's an election going on right now.
I know people that voted for the president that are not racist. So it's one of those things where it is very difficult.
Yeah. 713-440-8870. Michael from Nassau Bay. Michael, what's on your mind?
I think you guys seem to lose sight of the real issue here.
Okay.
You have illegals in the country, and you have people that are waiting patiently in their own country to get here. Those who have paid the fees and are waiting. I don't like going to the movie theater, have somebody jump in front of me and get into the theater without even buying the ticket. You guys seem to lose sight of that.
I hear what you're saying, Michael, and I appreciate your calling in. I would say I don't know that we've lost sight of that. I think we have mentioned pretty much whenever we have this topic that we understand that there is an issue and a problem with undocumented folks in the country and how they got here and the different paths to rectify that situation. And yes, I don't think anyone is in favor of undocumented folks bucking the system and coming in. But as Celeste was just referring to, when you are in a situation where you have sought asylum in this country and you are following the rules and laws of this country to rectify your immigration status, it seems a bit rough that these people are being picked up and detained when they're trying to follow the situation as best they can to rectify it.
And I think we have to also clarify, U.S. immigration law is primarily a system of civil and administrative law, not criminal law.
Right.
So meaning that violations like overstaying a visa should lead to civil consequences, deportation, that is within the right constraint, rather than criminal punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Criminal punishment could be picking somebody up and putting them in a detention center and holding them essentially in a cell like they have broken some type of, or they've made a criminal offense. So to clarify, there is also the actual constitutional law that comes with this.
713-440-8870. Lola is on the line from Upper Kirby. Lola, what's on your mind?
Good afternoon, you all. Thanks for another great show. My comment is related to the comment earlier about bringing a weapon to armed protests. And when the Black Lives Matter shooting was going on, Kyle Rittenhouse was able to bring his weapon. Nobody mentioned anything of bringing a weapon to a protest during that time when all of that was going on. But now all of a sudden it's, we no longer can bring weapons. Bringing a weapon to a protest incites a different type of violence or insinuates that you're there to cause harm to officers or anybody on board. I just do not agree with that rhetoric, and especially for the Republicans that are talking about it, Ted Cruz included. Aren't they the party of the Second Amendment? I don't understand. Where's the change? So that was my only comment.
Lola, thank you for that.
Well, you have a right to carry. You have a right to carry. I just think you have to be judicious when you exercise that right.
Yeah, I think all rights come with responsibilities. But to have a group of people fight very hard for a particular right and to extend that right beyond where it is currently at because they believe so strongly in it, and then within years, all of a sudden looking the total opposite direction at it, saying, well, you don't have the right to have it or carry it, seems a little hypocritical.
A little bit.
Well, it seems like whenever, the president took a stance and really embraced Kyle Rittenhouse and really embraced the idea of having a gun, and that is a part of your Second Amendment and an American, they really drew a line there. And now here we are in a situation where you had an adult, Alex Preddy, who was a licensed to carry adult. He is a ICU nurse.
And apparently just on his way to breakfast.
On his way to breakfast.
When he sees this woman being pushed down.
This situation.
In an icy, snowy embankment.
And now
right?
Initially, it starts with he sees the situation, takes out his camera to start his phone to start filming.
Which is legal.
Right. Absolutely legal. He breaks no laws. He is dead today. Explain that to me.
True.
713-440-8870. Lynn is on the line from Cyprus. Lynn, what's on your mind?
Good afternoon. My comment is in reply to Ernie's comment earlier about the tension created for residents and for ICE and Border Patrol agents that is now in Minneapolis. I think there are two ways to deal with that kind of tension. One is good training for the officers, and it's my understanding that they've been hired recently and have not had as much training as most law enforcement officers have, especially de-escalation training. So they've sent these untrained people into Minneapolis. And it's also possible to de-escalate tension if the President of the United States steps up and says calming words and indicates that he is a president for all the people and that he wants us all to do good and please calm down. But he does not do that. He makes things worse. That's my comment.
All right, fair enough, Lynn. Thank you for that. We have Alero on the line from River Oaks. Alero, what is your thought on all of this?
Hi, Ernie. Thank you for the time. So, and I heard you talk about the number of people who voted for Trump in response to another color. I've always believed that patriarchy was a factor in the election. People gave themselves a reason not to vote for women, and then we end up with Trump both times. And I think about that with the horrible murder of Mr. Preddy, right? The rhetoric, as I listen to the news and read, seems to be more about who Alex is rather than the fact that this is another senseless death. So to my point, as horrible as the situation is, it pains me to see that the changes, or more correctly, the movement, because I don't know if changes are actually really happening, is sort of focused on the fact that a white male in America has been murdered. So I sort of, I'm curious to see, your thoughts as to, is a white man in America valued more than a white female? And then you now think about the brown and black people in that sort of hierarchy, because more Republicans are all of a sudden speaking up. There are more public signs and billboards out there, but, Renee Good was just killed in a senseless way, shot in the face. So, I'll just take this offline.
Yeah, I think that you're asking a lot of questions that many people have asked in the past. We are talking about, obviously, immigration and policy within this country, and voting has always been very complicated. I do want to point out, Abril Davila on YouTube mentioned, quick note, voter turnout in presidential elections isn't that low. Over 60% of eligible voters participated in 2024 elections. Most Americans vote in presidential elections. She also said the elections with low turnout are local ones, not presidential.
I would respond to that by saying, if they told you tomorrow they're only giving you 60% of your paycheck, would you say, well, that's a good amount of money for my salary? You have a right and an opportunity to vote, and until I see that as close to 100% as I can get, I'm still going to be disappointed.
And let's go to Charles from Cyprus. Charles, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
As a parent, I model trust and honesty to our children, and they've become trustful and honest human beings. Just like Ernie said, we have a lack of trust in our government officials, and I think it stems from the top. President Trump lies most of the time, in my opinion, about everything, and therefore his officials under him are going to get away with lying, and that's what we have as a problem in this country.
Thank you, Charles.
It's fair. Davis from West Houston. Davis, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Hello, Houston. Thanks for this important matter. My call is in response to the individual who likened undocumented immigrants to people cutting in line in the movie theater. Mm-hmm. And so using that extended metaphor, it's not cutting in line when for many people there effectively is no line at all, or that line can take a decade to go through the process. Or if you're born in Norway or Canada, you can go have a fast pass. And for many undocumented immigrants or these, theater line cutters, they're already in the theater working the concession stands, standing up and cleaning up people's popcorn off the floor. They might not have a ticket, but they are there, they're contributing. And so, getting them out of the movie halfway through and their family, I don't think it's not an apt metaphor. I refuse to accept that.
Thank you very much for those comments. It's funny, I was talking with someone the other day about this, and he was pointing out he works with undocumented folks, and he was like, they have been in this country for 20 years. They have paid taxes. They have Social Security cards, or they have no Social Security. They pay taxes. They pay into the system. They do not get welfare. They do not get medical care. They do not get SNAP benefits. They are paying into the system that the rest of us benefit out of. And so he himself was against the idea of people coming into this country and then signing up and getting into programs in nefarious ways, but that the vast majority of folks that are working in this country that come here that may not have complete immigration status are contributing.
And again, we want to thank you for joining us on Hello Houston. This is the type of conversation that we are always open for.
Yeah, Where Houston Talks.
Where Houston Talks. Coming up, we're going to discuss the new Frida Kahlo exhibit at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Next time on The Middle, the fatal shooting of another American citizen by federal authorities in Minneapolis. What does Alex Preddy's death mean for the future of immigration enforcement? Have the aggressive tactics being used by ICE under the Trump administration gone too far? And what does all of this mean for our democracy? Have your say on The Middle.
It's on tomorrow night at 8 o'clock.
This week on This American Life. Alan cut down 2 trees in his front yard, and when he did, he made some enemies.
There was this crow sitting in the front lawn, and as soon as the crow was out of my sight, that's when I got this thump on the back of my head.
Crows are vengeful. They hold grudges. Alan tried to make amends. But is that possible with an angry bird? This week.
This American Life. It's on tonight at 9 o'clock on News 88.7. Ellen Binninghoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer, proud sponsors of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen. Tune in Monday through Friday at 9 on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from DeCamera, presenting Brooklyn Rider, Frida's Dreams, with the premiere of a string quartet by Gabriela Lena Frank, inspired by Frida Kahlo, February 20th at Hobby Center. Tickets at DeCamera.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Frida Kahlo is undoubtedly one of the most influential artists of all time. While relatively unknown in her own time, like many great artists, her work is now recognized and celebrated worldwide, with her name achieving universal icon status. The life and legacy of this legendary Mexican artist are explored in the new Museum of Fine Arts Houston exhibition, Frida, The Making of an Icon, which features more than 30 of Kahlo's works, in addition to over 100 works from 5 generations of artists inspired by her. To tell us more about the exhibition, please welcome Cindy Peña, the Assistant Curator of Latin American and Latino Art at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, and Arden Decker, the Associate Director of the International Center for Art of the Americas. Cindy, Arden, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, I love Frida Kahlo, but I don't know why. I just really love her work, and it's hard to say this is why, because kind of all looks the same in a way. And so you tell me, why do I love it?
Well, I think your response is common. I bet there's more variation though in the Frida Kahlos than you think there is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you come see the exhibition, you might be surprised in that capacity. Beyond self-portraiture, which I think is what most of us are familiar with. Her most iconic works engage in self-portraiture, but there are also still lives, portraits of others that Kahlo created during her life. So it might help to diversify your knowledge of Frida.
Whenever I was in Mexico City about 2 years ago, we went to Frida's house, and now it's the official museum, and it was incredible to me to be in her space. And I felt really connected to her because it was so peaceful. But during that time, she was quite a controversial figure within Mexico City. Can you talk to us a little bit about her political advocacy?
Well, I would say yes and no to a degree. I mean, she was very much loved and known to a small circle of friends. But yes, she was very active in the political spectrum. She considered herself a communist and was affiliated even with the Communist Party in Mexico. And you can see elements of that in her house for sure.
Yeah.
But I think overall, like within the Mexican cultural landscape, she was very much admired and loved. I don't think she has that political confrontation that we read to that, time
We
now.
take it to that space, yeah.
What fascinates me, even the introduction that Celeste just gave, and you hear this often about an artist unrecognized in their time, not appreciated at the level that they grow to. What was it that triggered her growth and recognition that she became the name we know today? What was the impetus that happened there?
Part of it is the art market. Right, that this narrative of undiscovered artists that suddenly posthumously find a foothold in the art world, but due to popularity, but the art market certainly plays a role in this with Frida as well. She did not sell a lot of her work when she was alive, so we wouldn't have called her a commercial success during her lifetime, but towards the late 1970s, the major auction houses began to develop specialized markets for selling Latin American art. And so when we begin to see those Frida Kahlos enter those specialized markets, right, her monetary value, her currency within the markets begins to rise. And I mean, very recent news, in November of her, breaking the auction record for any woman artist thus far, that certainly helps to elevate her currency. But then there's also the sort of what we would call more the cultural currency and the popular currency of Frida. And one of the things that the show and our director, Mari Carmen Ramirez, has really emphasized with this exhibition is doing different is, separating those two phenomenon, because why she's popular with you and you love her art so much
and Diego, I love Diego
and Diego,
too.
so we don't want to discriminate against Diego, but
this is about Frida.
This is about Frida, but it's less to do with her market value and more to do with the ways in which she's able to tap into her own moment, but then continues to be able to tap into our current moment.
And I think that's what's so fascinating, right, is the themes within her work, her body, the infertility, the things that she was going through as a woman can still speak to so many women today. But she was putting it out there in a time when it was taboo to discuss not having a baby or drawing very, very openly her body.
Yes, that's one of the things that the exhibition also explores. So we go through several generations of artists that have used some of these elements that you've just described. The fact of her inability to conceive children, the fact of her traumatic relationship with her spouse and with many other family members, the fact that she was severely injured when she was very young. Yeah. And many contemporary artists and artists since the 1970s take some of those elements and put them into their own work, in a way extending that legacy to our time.
Right.
Have we mythologized her to a point that's difficult then when you have to give a reality in a show in what you're doing? And what were the challenges for that?
Certainly. And an added layer of complication there is the degree to which Kahlo mythologized herself.
Right.
Right. Which is also, though, part of this like polyvalent aspect of Kahlo
Mm-hmm.
that makes her continue to be relevant to us. I think for most of us working on the exhibition, or maybe I shouldn't speak for everyone, but myself included, it's like you think there's this like Frida fatigue, especially if you work in the realm of Latin American and Mexican art. But the in terms of the mythology, I mean, part of that is also due to the explosion of popularity in her biography that was first published in 1983. It was not the very first biography of Kahlo, but it was the most popular one written by a U.S. art historian, Hayden Herrera. That, and is demonstrated in the exhibition, has been translated into over 25 languages.
Wow.
And a new one seems to come out about every couple of years. So, you know, her life story and that coupled with the biographical elements within her work, I think has allowed us to kind of read into her and into her work in ways that sometimes maybe are not fully accurate. And certainly the narrative of pain and suffering has been very dominant, and the readings of her work have often been through that lens. So I think this is another kind of new take that the exhibition is doing, is looking at her legacy and her impact more than going back and trying to re-examine and rehash or take out the fine details of did this happen, did this not happen, was she, wasn't she.
She also was very much, I mean, she was also creating art, but she used her own image as art. Can you talk to us about that and how that's used within the exhibition, the way she dressed, sometimes how she would wear her hair? She was very proud to be Mexican.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll connect that with what we just discussed, which is really that is the starting point of our exhibition, how she self-constructed her image, not only, as you say, in her artwork, but also in the way that she dressed and the way that she posed for photographs, which she very, very often did for many photographers, worldwide famous photographers. So the way that she used that to her advantage, perhaps to, you know, be part of a certain moment in Mexican history.
Could we say that Frida was an influencer?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit.
Frida an influence over time? Yeah. I know that word is starting to become very uncool.
Yeah.
But I also think to a certain extent, she was like not maybe setting a trend then, but now there are trends that she
was her own
set.
PR team.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, to jump on that, was she more calculated than maybe we gave her credit for being? Was there more of a plan in place than simply an artist expressing themselves through their art?
I don't know. I don't think it was a evil calculation, but she definitely was very aware of what was going on within art history and within the cultural movement that she was part of, but also that she wanted to express a certain idea of her through art and through life. So, yeah, I think that's a good way to. She was definitely calculated, and she was curious, and she studied
and
what was
smart
going on
and had a strategy.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So how do we see all of this?
You come to the Museum of Fine Arts Houston.
Yeah,
I've heard of that place.
I knew that
don't know
part.
if you heard of it. The exhibition is in our law building in the upper level galleries. We are open Wednesday through Sunday, and admission is free on Thursdays.
How many pieces?
We have, this is a better Cindy question.
Well, we have 30 works by Frida in between paintings, drawings, and a few ephemera from her diaries, which you are maybe familiar with. Those have been published. And then about 120 works by other artists. So everyone in dialogue with Kahlo. And what's interesting is that we've dispersed all of the Frida works throughout the exhibition. So you get these surprises now and again as you encounter the galleries in the exhibition.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Cindy Peña is the Assistant Curator of Latin American and Latino Art at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. Arden Decker is the Associate Director of the International Center for Art of the Americas. Cindy and Arden, thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frida, the Making of an Icon, will be on view at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston through May 17th. For more information, you can head to MFAH.org. Well, I hate to say it, but we've run out of time.
Well, you were only here an hour.
Well, it went by fast.
It did go by fast. This hour was very quick.
And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for watching and listening and joining us today on Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversation. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking with Harris County Clerk Tanisha Hudspeth. This is News 88.7. Have a great day, Houston.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menivar, Jen Altine, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.